Good evening. This is Jessica DeLordo. I'm reporting out on my consultant challenge on antisocial behavior with a focus on bullying, cyberbullying, and conflict resolution. Here are some highlights. First, you have to understand the problem. The definition of bullying is the repeated exposure to negative actions, relations, or words by an individual or a group with the intent of intimidating and gaining power over the victim. Most adults have had experience with traditional bullying, whether it be the bully or the victim, or maybe even just a bystander. Some examples are name calling and teasing, manipulating others to kind of get what you want out of the situation, or intimidating others based on their strength and size, so physical bullying. A new trend we are seeing is cyberbullying, which is the intentional and repeated harm inflicted on the victim through the use of technology. This new phenomena we are experiencing is a result of the ever-changing technology that we have access to in our lives. But also, the problem lies within the fact that our young children and students have access to this technology as well. Some examples of cyberbullying include sexting or posting images, threats that happen via email, text message, or any sort of social media application, and catfishing or faking identities, making fake profiles to trick another student into thinking they're somebody they're not. So both traditional bullying and cyberbullying are large problems from students as old as college to students as young as about 4th and 5th grade. So this is something that we need to address. Some statistics regarding bullying and cyberbullying are as follows. Usually with traditional bullying, males are involved with the physical aspect of bullying, so pushing each other into lockers, tripping each other, kind of starting physical altercations, whereas females engage in the relational bullying, which is behind your back, talking about one another, starting rumors, pretending you're her friend when you're not. What we kind of start to assume is just typical female behavior is actually considered bullying. Another statistic I found interesting regarding traditional bullying is that students perceive their teachers intervene with bullying only about 25% of the time. And this was shocking to me because as a teacher, I believe I intervene with bullying or cyberbullying as soon as I find out it's occurring. And so for students to have the perception that teachers don't care and they're not getting involved is kind of startling. As for cyberbullying, since 2009, there's been a huge increase in 6th and 7th graders involved in cyberbullying. This is due to the increase in access of technology for these students. More students have cell phones and access to tablets at a younger age now, which is good for a lot of educational purposes, but when it comes to situations such as cyberbullying, we run the risk of a lot of damage that can be done in the future. Students are too immature at 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, and even in high school to understand the ramifications that could come back to bite them in the rear end in the future because of what they're posting via social media or on the internet as a 11-year-old. Another statistic is that cyberbullies are more likely to be female, and their victims typically know who they are about 68% of the time. This statistic didn't surprise me so much because in traditional bullying, females engage in that relational bullying, which is a little sneakier behind your back. So for females to engage in cyberbullying, which is again sneakier behind your back, posting things instead of engaging face to face, was not very surprising to me. Something I thought I should take part in was interviewing faculty and students within the district at Plano Community Unit School District to see what their take is and experiences are with traditional bullying and cyberbullying. In many of the cases, cyberbullying seemed to be a larger issue. When I interviewed a 7th grade science teacher at Plano Middle School, Mr. Thorgeson said he had had negative experience with a male student who had recorded him while he was reprimanding the class for having poor quality of work and lack of effort on a recent assignment. That student uploaded the clip near immediately, onto a social media application on his phone, attached with some inappropriate comments and feedback for the teacher. And of course, the teacher didn't know this was occurring because there's several students in the classroom. It wasn't until the next day a student decided to turn that bully in. The student didn't think it was appropriate and found administrators, and the bully did receive consequences. However, Mr. Thorgerson received a lot of backlash from both the student and the parent. They were arguing that because it was a student's personal account and it was on the student's personal cell phone, that the school shouldn't have access to it and there should not be a punishment. The teacher was also blamed for allowing the student to have the cell phone in the classroom in the first place because school policy says they shouldn't have the phone at all. So there's a lot of policies that are kind of conflicting when it comes to social media and cyberbullying and what the actual jurisdiction is. A lot of research shows that schools want to be involved, but they're hesitant because it is personal property and it is applications that can be accessed outside of school as well. When I interviewed a freshman student at Plano High School, she had pretty much broke down to me explaining her two incidences that she had being threatened on social media. Her biggest fear came true when the social media harassment kind of carried into the school day and students were following her around, harassing her, kind of behind teachers' backs, so it wasn't made very aware to adults around. So it was literally everywhere she went, there was comments and pictures and inappropriate things, and she just felt she couldn't escape. She didn't want to tell adults because she thought it would make the situation worse. It wasn't until one of her teachers overheard a couple other students gossiping about the situation that it was taken care of by administration. This student expressed that she thought it was really important that more conversation and support groups pop up in schools to support students that are experiencing bullies because they're not alone and there should be a way for them to obtain coping strategies and to prevent these incidents from happening in the first place. Some of the effects on academic achievement are pretty straightforward. Students that are being bullied really don't want to be at school. They don't want to put any effort forth, so their academic performance is going to suffer. Their self-esteem and motivation might suffer as well. So where once they might have been a confident student or motivated enough just to do their work in class, this might not be the case anymore. They might be very anxious around peers. They may be falling into a medical condition, and depression might be the case because they're not seeking the assistance they need from the adults around them. The case could be angry outbursts. So these academic achievement effects are not just the victim, but it's also the bully. When bullies are engaging in this, there's going to be some effects on their own person as well. So sometimes it takes place as angry outbursts. Both victims and bullies have experienced truancy and suspension because they're acting in ways that they wouldn't normally act, nor is acceptable to happen in the classroom. It's also been reported that students, namely victims, bring weapons to school to feel safe. They don't feel safe because they've either physically been threatened or threatened via the internet, and so for their own safety, they might bring guns or knives to school. And this is a huge problem for the entire school's academic achievement because if an incident were to arise because a weapon was brought to school, the whole school environment would suffer. Some of the prevention strategies that I was able to research were around conflict resolution programs and the PBIS program that the school has in place. Conflict resolution program really pushed for character education and character development as early as kindergarten. It's really important we're instilling in our students proper morals, understanding that bullying is not okay no matter how old you are, and it's not a rite of passage. I have students, even in my classroom, saying, well, that's normal. You're supposed to tease and banter, and and you have to teach lessons even at the high school level that it's not acceptable because everyone perceives your words differently. Having the option for peer mediation, students should be able to have the tools to work out their own problems, but we need to guide them and so that that's done properly. It's also important that we provide cross-curricular training in conflict resolution for teachers because with the growing changes in diversity in our school setting, we have to understand that not every group of people solves problems the same way. So challenging ourselves to think outside the box and understand where a student is coming from in regards to resolving a conflict is extremely important. And then finally, enhancing the positive behavioral intervention support system that's already in place within the building, using what our students want and letting them lead the school in regards to preventing these behaviors. If it's one thing for the teachers and administrators to want something to take off and run, but if the students aren't invested, it's kind of a moot point. So encouraging students to take leadership roles in these committees and put their ideas out there is one of the best bets for creating these prevention strategies. Then finally, I have my references. These are just the references I used for this PowerPoint. I have several more for my paper, but I hope you enjoyed my presentation.